We're here in London, England, preparing for two games between the legendary rivals, the New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox. And this is without question the biggest rivalry in American sports. And you bring it here to London. This is Dr. Maria Ryan. She's my good friend, and she's a Red Sox fan.
Oh, really?
And we prove that Red Sox fans and Yankee fans can be friends off the field.
That's right.
Right?
Rudy, this is truly exciting. Our passion for baseball. I know you've come to Fenway Park. I've gone to Yankee Stadium. We both appreciate good plays, and we're really honored to have the Commissioner of Baseball here with us today, Rob Manfred.
Oh, thank you.
Rob, it's great to have you here, and you've really been terrific for baseball. You've speeded up the game.
Well, we're working at it.
You're working on expansion. You've taken us beyond all the stuff that was going on in the past, which I know you had a lot to do to clear up when you were COO of baseball. So I really congratulate you on helping to revive by far my favorite sport.
Well, we do think it's the greatest game in the world. This is a particularly exciting venture for us. You know, we've been looking for the right opportunity to make an impression in Europe, begin to develop the game here, and hats off to John, Henry, and Hal Steinbrenner. They really they were a little in front of us in terms of getting these games done. They really wanted it to happen, and the fact that they were on board was really a key to making the event happen.
I was surprised when we talked to both managers how much enthusiasm they had for this. I almost thought maybe you had sometimes in football you got to push the teams to come here.
Well, for the rivalry is great, but John Henry and Hal have been personal friends going back to when John was a limited.
Fans have a hard time believing that.
I know they really are, but they were pushing us to commit to the event, find a place where it would happen, and it really did make a big difference in terms of the planning of the event.
So how did you decide to do it? How did you, as the commissioner, decide to do it for baseball? Because it's a big risk.
The key for us, let me mention a few things. First of all, the support of the clubs. Secondly, the venue is a really difficult thing in Europe because, as I'm sure you realize, most soccer pitches, you can't put a baseball field on it. So it took some time to find a venue that we thought was workable, and then actually do the hands-on things to make sure that we could build out a baseball field. And I think, as you'll see today, it looks great out there. But that was really, really important. And then, the third thing, we have a pretty good relationship with the Players Association. In the last round of bargaining, we put some money aside to fund international events, and some of that money will pay for this undertaking, because it's not a money maker for us. It really isn't.
Even with it being sold out in a day or two? Boom, sold out.
Yeah, it sold out in a day or two, but the cost of
Getting
travel,
team,
building out remember, like the infield
You're building a Yankee Stadium or Fenway Park there.
Right. We literally, the dirt for this infield was brought from Pennsylvania. You can imagine how expensive that was. The surface itself, they didn't, and I understand why, the stadium operators here were reluctant to have us cut the turf. So what you see out there is actually, there's a soccer pitch there that is undisturbed, the grass. They put drainage on top of it and then built the AstroTurf field on top of that, complete with the dirt. So, you start thinking about all of that. They had to construct I don't know if you've been in the clubhouse.
Not yet.
The clubhouses are fantastic. As the Yankee players said, it's a hell of a lot nicer than the visitors clubhouse at Fenway. But they literally built them on the track. This is, there's a track that runs outside the stadium. So, a lot of overhead in terms of a game like this. But, I think all 30 clubs, not just the Yankees and the Red Sox, I think all 30 clubs see this as an investment in our future.
Next year, you've got the Cardinals and the Cubs.
Right.
Another, historic rivalry.
Yeah. And, not by mistake. We thought, given that it was our first foray into Europe, first time we've been in London. It was really important to bring some great rivalries. This is a great event city, and we think Yankees, Red Sox, Cubs, Cardinals are pretty good events.
Like, I am so excited, I can't stand myself.
Yeah.
What about other cities in the future? Have you thought about Mexico City or any other place?
Yeah, we have. Mexico City has a new 18,000 seat stadium where we will play in the near future. We'd like to play other places in Europe. I know, the NFL has come to London. It's become
pretty popular.
Yeah.
And we hope we'll be back in London after the 2 years that we're committed to. But we'd also like to explore the possibility of being some other places. Again, the trick is facilities. Baseball,
I agree with you.
Baseball stadiums are a little different than.
Is their Cricket World Cup going to be at this exact stadium?
I don't know where they're playing the cricket. It's going on right now, so it can't be
it can't
here.
be. Okay,
It's the
all
same
right.
time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it'll go on for weeks, right?
Yeah, we have played on it. Right. Talk about pace of play.
It makes your game seem lightning fast.
Right. Now, we have played on a cricket. We played in the Sydney Cricket Grounds a few years ago, and that was an easier
Transition.
You went to
Yeah.
Australia?
Yeah, a few years ago, Arizona and LA. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they played a regular game, or
Yeah, they played 2 regular season games to open the season.
And you've done. I was at Japan when
Yeah.
when the Yankees played the Devil Race. They were
Right.
still the Devil Race then.
Right,
And we lost the first game. Yacine was so upset that he was pitching. And then Mike Mussina didn't want to make the trip. And I knew he was going to lose because he was in a bad mood.
Oh, yeah. Hey,
And we
it's
lost,
all
and it
about
jinxed
psychology, right?
the whole darn season.
Yeah.
That's when they did that 4 games in a row.
Right. Not their best year.
Not the Yankees' best. Their miracle year.
Yeah.
So you grew up in New York?
Upstate New York.
Upstate New York. And
Yeah,
were you a Yankee fan?
Rome, New York. I grew up a Yankee fan. My dad was a huge Yankee fan. We lived in a little valley near Syracuse, which was one of the first places where they actually tested cable TV. So as far back as I can remember, we had Yankee games. All the
So
Yankee
what team was your first team? Which was the
The Yankees were my
but
favorite.
who were the
who
players?
were they?
players.
The Reggie era?
My first game, no. Before that, my first game was in 1968.
Okay, so the end of Mantle.
The end of Mantle. We saw Mantle play against the Twins on a Saturday. We drove down from upstate. They got beat by the Twins 3-2. Mantle hit a home run, solo shots from each side of the plate.
Oh, wow.
It was the last time he ever hit 2 home runs in a game.
Wow.
And then the next day was Old Timers Day.
Wow.
I had nice parents. Next day was Old Timers Day. We went to Old Timers Day, and then I was excited. It was Stottlemyre's year that he had that great year. ERA was under 2.5, really good. So he goes out against the Twins. He gives up 11 in the first 2 innings. So we saw him lose
Pretty
twice.
darn rare. Pretty darn rare.
never
My first game was the Yankees and the Red Sox. 1951, DiMaggio in center field for the Yankees and DiMaggio in center field for the Red Sox.
Oh, that's awesome.
And they hit to each other.
Yeah.
And because of that,
Dumb.
I can figure out the game because somebody in Cooperstown, I told them, middle of the summer, the 2 DiMaggio brothers playing, and they consecutively hit singles to each other. So yeah, it was June 27th, June 28th.
Isn't that unbelievable?
And my father took me, and from then on, it was a love affair.
I know my date, August 10th. I mean, I remember walking in the ballpark. I
Isn't
mean,
that, we all have that. That
Yeah,
first thing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing this. We haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, we haven't
And
seen
of course,
the stadium.
she has Fenway, which is
Fenway, I grew up in that park.
Awesome.
I had great parents as well. Very much a baseball family. I
Right.
had an uncle, Uncle Fonzie Sorello, who actually played.
I had an Uncle Fonzie.
Oh,
How
yeah.
about that?
You're Italian, right?
Yeah, I'm half Italian.
Yeah. So it's really Alphonse.
my
But,
father would have said, yeah.
But we called him Uncle
Yeah, but he
Fonzie. I mean,
played
before, this was way before the
but he
Fonzie.
played with
Yeah.
Joe
yeah.
DiMaggio. So
If my
it's
father was
just
still
in our
alive,
blood.
I would have gone home and said the commissioner's Italian. I said, yeah, I know. He did such a good job. He had to be Italian.
Of course
He
he
used to
did.
call Mickey Mantle,
Yeah.
Mickey Mantello.
I have to give you kudos for, baseball was going in the wrong direction and came under a lot of criticism during all that steroid, and is it fair? All these awards are being
Right.
won and the home runs when these guys are beefed up. But you came in and cleaned it up.
Well, look, we have a very resilient game. I think it's one of the reasons that Americans are so attached to baseball is the game's ability to recover, regenerate, come back. And it was an unfortunate era, but I think that we have made a nice recovery. And it's unbelievable. In addition to dealing with the steroid issue, I think this more recent period of years, the quality of the athletes that we have. I mean, I stood next to Aaron Judge last night.
No, come
Felt
on.
like a midget, you know.
giant,
I
right?
a little person.
Yeah.
I did.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You feel like you're 5'2" or something.
Yeah, and just and it's one athlete after another. I mean, it's not one guy. It's all of them. Just their athleticism, and our players, I think, are very appealing characters.
Yeah.
I mean, people.
Great role models
They
too.
are.
Yeah, and they give.
They are.
And that's still important. I mean,
It is.
Yeah.
It's very important.
Like Big Papi, everything he does in the Dominican for kids wanting to get into baseball.
Yeah, the community in general. I mean, just the combination of what our clubs do and what the players do themselves in communities is really important. I'm sure the Red Sox had a charity event on Thursday at Kensington Palace. They're affiliated with a charity called Home Base, which is a veterans charity, treats PTSD. I actually visited, there is a standalone facility. I actually visited the last time I was in Boston. Unbelievable work that they do. It was such as a matter of fact, it's so groundbreaking. They had a symposium the day before the charity event. The George W. Bush Foundation funded the symposium. It was
yes, I read that.
groups
Yes,
from all over Britain.
It's wonderful.
And the United States got together. It's just, I mean, and that's one example. I mean, I mentioned, the Yankees youth event that they did. Actually, it was the same day. It was on Thursday as well. It delivered a truckload of baseball equipment to a club here in London that has 4 levels of adult play and youth play from 18U all the way down to T-ball. And, there were 120 members of the clubs there. People from other clubs around London came. And, they were standing there and, Hal spoke a little bit, then I spoke, and they had Hideki Matsui, Mariano Rivera, Reggie Jackson, Nick Swisher, Andy Pettit. Well, I said to the kids, you don't get a youth program like this in the United States. I mean, you don't get guys like this. So it was really a nice day. Really a nice day.
It's refreshing to hear that baseball's making a comeback. And I only say that because
Tom told us that and Randy told us. He said baseball among young people. Because we might be a couple of years behind.
Yep, we
think,
reading.
well, football and basketball and
lacrosse.
baseball is making a comeback among young people.
Well, I think it's a focus on younger fans, and you see it in some of the things that the clubs are doing. I'm sure you've noticed at Yankee Stadium, as much as you're there, how they've developed these millennial areas, alternate kind of seating arrangements, and then same kind of developments on the media side. I mean, we have, our traditional media partners, Fox and ESPN, they really matter to us, but we have relationships with YouTube, Twitter, and being on the platforms,
you
Facebook.
You got to meet them where they're at, right?
Where they are, and we've worked really hard to try to reach out to those younger audiences.
It is our national pastime.
Well, we want to keep it that way.
And I don't want you changing it too much. I'm such a traditionalist. It's really hard for me. I told everybody we've interviewed so far, Fenway Park means so much to me. Even the smell when I walk in, it just brings back memories.
Well, we'll make sure it's the same smell.
See, I had a Fenway chapter too. So when I graduated, I went to law school in Boston. When I graduated, I clerked for a federal judge for a year in Boston. And we had moved from Cambridge, where I lived when we were in school, over to Coolidge Corner. And I would take the Green Line home, from the courthouse to where we lived. And Fenway was about halfway. So I used to stop at Fenway. It was when you could still walk up and buy a bleacher ticket. I'd call Conley and say, hey, why don't you meet me down here the rest of the way home? But I had a lot of nice evenings there. Well, it's a great ballpark.
Oh my God.
The changing the game thing, let me give you a thought about this.
Yes,
and
okay.
When it was my first year as commissioner, one of my deputies, Tony Petiti, put together a fantastic piece for the owners that compared one of the Kansas City Mets World Series games to the Bill Mazeroski game. And the differences in the game were so
You had to mention
striking.
the Bill Mazeroski game.
Yeah, I hear you. But there was no one struck out in the Bill Mazeroski game. players almost overwhelmingly swung at the first pitch. They never swing at the first pitch anymore.
No.
The game was a 2-hour game, even though the scores in the two games were exactly the same. Our World Series game was 3+.
Right.
So what's my point? My point's this. A lot of the things we're talking about, I see as managing organic change that has happened in the game. And trying to be a little more aggressive about managing that change and make sure we know where it's going than we have been for the last 10 or 15 years. And when you realize how much the game has changed, you can change the narrative sort of to what we're really talking about is making it a little more like it used to be.
Yeah. I heard about how many seconds go by before the pitcher throws his ball.
The seconds and balls in play. The length of time between balls
but no
and plays.
cap on the game.
No
cap.
I don't think you're going to be looking at a cap.
Good. I don't want a cap.
I actually see the game as an antidote for young people against attention deficit disorder. Everything in our society moves so fast. Everybody wants to be so fast.
Kind of forces them.
If we can get you into baseball,
right,
you got to think a little.
Yeah.
I was a catcher.
Tell them about your math too.
I learned math. My father was a great math genius. He could add up columns of figures, and I hated math until I was about 8 years old. And my father had a great idea. He said, what's Yogi Berra's batting average? I knew I had it memorized, but 303 or something like that. He said, what's Mickey Mantle's batting average? 320. He said, what's the batting average? I said, I don't know. Batting average is how good they're doing. Maybe you get 3 points for a home run, or 4 points for a home run, and 1 point for... He said, no. Batting average is the percentage of times they
get a hit.
It's like 33% or 22%, or 1 out of 3, 1 out of 4. I said, well, how can I figure that out? And he showed me how to do percentages. From then on, I love math.
Yeah.
Because I could explain to all my friends what a batting average was, what an earned run average was.
Right.
I think you access young people through what they're interested in.
Yeah.
Right.
Like math is boring if it's not about baseball, or about music if you like music. So baseball has been at the core of my life, and to see it coming back like this, it's so great. But the shift drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Because when I played baseball, I swear to God, if they opened up the right side of the infield, I was a right-handed hitter, and I could hit to the opposite field. If I had to take advantage of that, my coach, he probably would have hit me.
Right.
I mean, if the whole right side of the infield is open, and I try to get a home run to left field.
Yeah.
But why don't they do it? These guys can hit a 99-mile-an-hour fastball.
This is an example of how hard it is to change and manage change on the field, right? When we started seeing the shifts, and the numbers are phenomenal. In the last 5 years, it's gone from like rough numbers. I think it's like there were 1,200 shifts 5 years ago. There'll be 40,000. It's not the exact number, but
it works
orders of magnitude.
80% of the time? It works 80?
Yeah, crazy. So when it started to happen, what a lot of smart baseball guys were saying, look, they will adjust. They're the greatest athletes in the world. They'll adjust. They'll go the other way. Okay, and they were like, they batted .666. They are the greatest athletes in the world. They did adjust, but the adjustment they made, they decided they were going to go up over the top of the shift as opposed to go the other way. And it has contributed to the number of home runs that we're seeing.
Yeah.
So
and the strikeouts.
Yeah.
Because they swing hard.
Right. And so you don't, you make a change. You think you know how people are going to react to it.
Amazing.
And,
Amazing. God, just think Billy Martin, the shift. And Reggie doesn't hit against the shift, we have another fight in the dugout in Fenway Park. Right.
Well, it's funny. Last week we were talking about the shift in a meeting, and someone said, don't regulate the shifts. Sooner or later they're going to adjust. It's Darwin, and I think what I said was, I'm not sure we can wait for Darwin. Sometimes you have to be a little more proactive, and it's a great example of the issue I raised with you a minute ago. I think if we made people, for example, I'm not suggesting this has to be the rule, but it could be the rule, that you had to have 2 defenders on each side of second base.
Yeah.
And people looked out there and they saw the players in positions the way they traditionally looked. I don't think fans would care about that. They might actually like it.
I don't know.
I
I have a hard time thinking about that.
I like it because to me, the playing small ball playing little ball. You know,
Yeah,
so it's such an important. It's such an important. And I think it's really important because your team, even if it's a home run hitting team like the Yankees, can get into a slump of home runs.
Right.
And then if you can turn them around to be single hitters for a little while, they can come out of it.
It's like any other all or nothing
Give them a couple
strategy,
of options.
right? It's an all or nothing strategy.
Right.
It is, and the numbers support it. You know, the analytics support the idea that
It does,
the home
yeah.
run is the most
It's like the
valuable.
old Casey Stengel, Weaver, Baltimore Orioles, Casey Stengel, Yankees.
Yeah.
Just go for the home run.
Yeah.
Get a couple guys on base and swing for the home
Hit
run.
the
Go for the
three-run
big
home
inning.
run. Yeah.
Don't steal.
Yeah.
Don't bunt. Taking bunting out, drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Like, don't move the guy up.
I like a good bunt. I really do.
Yeah,
I think it's
I like a
strategy.
good
Yeah, I think those
Yeah,
parts of the
advance
game are.
that player.
I think
you know?
those parts of the game have value for us.
But if we're debating that, then your sport's ahead of the game.
Well,
The
this
minute
is
people are talking about stuff like
Yeah.
this,
100%.
that's why baseball's a more thoughtful game. There are a lot of different aspects to it where you have to think a lot.
We were laughing when I first started. Hit a guy, Kevin Sullivan, who had worked for President Bush, come in. He's a media consultant, and he did all the things, kind of training that you should have. And at the end, he said, I'll give you 30 questions that you have to have a stock answer to. And his last question.
That you as commissioner?
Yeah, that you just always have to have his, and his last one was about the DH, and it was your answer.
Right.
As long as they're talking about it, we're fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think,
It's-
I was dead set against the DH when it first happened. Didn't Ron Bloomberg get the first home run as a DH?
Yes.
The Yankee
Wow,
first
good for you
baseman.
guys.
Yankees first baseman. As soon as that happened, this is a good idea.
Of course.
This is a good,
Just like the wild card was a good idea in 2004
Right.
for the Red Sox.
Right.
Now tell me, you obviously love baseball, grew up loving baseball. You, as the commissioner, have to make some tough decisions. It's business. Does that take away any joy for you?
No.
Oh, good.
I really have never felt that way. I still watch a ton of baseball. Every time that I watch it, I enjoy it. I guess compartmentalization works for me.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
it's a business during the day. But when I watch a game pretty much like
I
you
love
watch a
it.
game.
Yeah.
So the commissioner is a lawyer.
Yeah.
He's a law clerk like I was, so I share
Yeah.
a common background with him.
Yeah.
But he's having a lot more fun than a lawyer.
Yeah, I do the long job straw.
When did you come into I think I know when, but when did you come into baseball?
With
the labor dispute, right?
Right. I started as an outside lawyer in 1987.
Doing
my
labor
negotiations,
negotiations?
labor stuff.
Oh.
Yeah. My firm got retained kind of in the middle of the grievances over whether there was collusion or not. We were kind of retained to finish those grievances out. And then I worked on the 89-90 negotiations. And then I was kind of the young lawyer on it. The 94 strike, I was kind of the last man standing in the law firm.
We were in first place when that strike took place. That was my first full year as the mayor. And that was my first year. I was counting on a Yankee pennant for my first year as mayor.
There you go.
And there you go on strike on me.
Well, so this is a small world thing. So we get through the strike. Everybody else from my firm had departed the scene. I was sort of the last one left, and they hired Randy.
Well, Randy, they're hired from me.
From you.
Randy was my labor
Right.
commissioner.
Yeah.
So Randy comes to be the labor guy at baseball. He had been a partner in another firm. I figure I'm done, right? I mean, he's
Right.
going to
Yeah, your
bring in
job
his
is
own
done.
guys, and
Yeah.
you'd have to ask Randy why. But he kept me.
He thinks the world of you.
Yeah, he kept me, and we finally made the agreement in '96. Randy and I did a deal together, and then Randy went back to work for you.
He became deputy mayor for
right.
economic development.
And they elected Commissioner Seelig as the permanent commissioner, and I came in-house then in '98 as the labor guy, and I did 3 deals for him as the labor guy, and then eventually became the COO.
And as more and more you took over the management part of baseball, and not just the legal part.
You know what? I owe Bud, Commissioner Seelig, a debt on that one. I was really purely the labor guy when I started, and he expanded my portfolio over a period of time, just more and more issues. And really put me in a position to
great
become
leader.
the COO
Yeah.
eventually.
You
And
saw
See, it proves that
talent in you? Yeah.
lawyers can manage. We
Right.
always say lawyers can. The
Yeah.
commissioner is a great example of somebody who can manage, and he's a lawyer, so they can
Yeah.
stop all that.
Although we have
Yeah.
too many lawyers in Washington. That's another podcast.
Well, that could be.
So what's the biggest issue that you're facing?
I think
now,
the
at
biggest
baseball, our great sport.
I think we talked about it a moment ago. Everything we do, our media strategy, our strategy on ticketing, are all driven by our desire to make sure that the next generation loves the game
That's great.
and engages with the game in the same way that we do. And we have some new and interesting tools out
Right.
there. I mean, I think sports betting is an engagement tool. I think you have to be very, very careful, about the integrity
Right,
of your
right,
game. Make
right.
sure it's the right kind of
Right.
legislation. We're very active
Yes.
in the lobbying area right now. But this is funny. Adam Silver called me one night. We were talking about something. He said, Rob, I just heard you talking about pace of game. He said, just remember, your game's going to be perfect for sports betting.
Of course, I know.
You can bet on innings, you can bet on at
Yeah.
bats,
Yeah,
you can bet on
yeah.
balls and strikes.
Yeah.
we do have some tools, but literally, when everything we think about, sort of the last box we check is what's it doing for us in terms of making sure younger people are associated with it.
And younger kids, especially in underserved areas, it may be their ticket. Like that's how young people in the Dominican look at
Right.
coming
Yeah,
to America.
coming to America.
They start playing baseball at a very young age.
So I'll tell you a great investment story, right? You always think about where are you investing. So we were not spending a lot of money on youth participation, okay? And when we started, I am a quantitative decision maker. I like data. So we did a bunch of survey work, and what we learned is the biggest determinant of whether you're a fan as an adult is whether you played as a kid. So all of a sudden, I'm thinking, we got to get more kids playing the game. So we started investing in that space, particularly in underserved
I
areas.
love it right here in America.
We
I love
have
it.
our participation in baseball and softball in the last 5 years since we started the Play Ball initiative, we call it, has gone up 21%. It's the fastest growing sport. It is a phenomenal growth pattern, given that youth participation in sports generally is declining. So
Yeah.
against declining participation, we've gone up 21%. One of the sort of side benefits is, we have about 8% African American players in the big leagues right now. About 20% of our first round players in the draft the last 5 years have been African American. Almost every one of them has some connection to a Major League Baseball youth program.
That's
So
terrific.
we're
That
getting,
is
so
cool.
it's a
I'm so
really,
happy to
Because
hear
there was a
that.
time that African American players, there was a bigger number, and then they started moving over to football and basketball.
Yeah.
and you know what it's about? Give them a place to
But,
play.
but
Yeah,
why,
yeah.
why not? The,
Yeah,
the athletic
absolutely.
skills are there.
In their neighborhoods, if there's no fields or
Give them
anything.
fields.
Yeah.
make
It's hard.
it-
It's a little
Equipment.
harder in a
Equipment available. Do you
have
metropolitan
anything in
area.
New
It's a little
Hampshire?
harder.
Can I tell you, we have programs in every one of the
Because
50.
That's great.
I want to advocate for New Hampshire because I see some great young baseball players there and they love the game. And I particularly would love it if area children got on the Boston Red Sox. Like you have a kid from New York now that's
Ottavino,
Yeah.
you just got him back.
Right.
A
And they
New York
drafted,
guy.
Yeah.
they drafted a New York kid in the first round.
Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
It means
Anthony
something.
Volpe.
It means
yeah,
something.
Anthony Volpe. So
Right.
New Yorkers must love that. That's
Yeah.
their hometown kid.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's terrific. So, what's next for expansion?
Look, I think that we need to get Tampa and Oakland resolved from a facility perspective. I'd love to be 32. It unlocks a lot of schedule formats. I know you're a math guy.
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Fives in a schedule. I don't
Yeah.
want to bore you to tears.
No,
Are
no.
a bad thing,
We've
right?
looked at this,
yeah.
And it unlocks a lot of opportunities for us. There's cities that would like baseball. I just feel like I need those two resolved before we
Right.
can really.
And it's a
get
question of facilities, or it's a little disappointing to see the turnout. You know where I really am surprised?
Baltimore.
Because the Marlins, still are a new team to me. Even Tampa's kind of a new team to
Yeah.
me. But the Baltimore Orioles have a tradition, almost like the
Yeah.
Yankees and the Red Sox. Maybe.
And
I
they've
mean,
had some good
we
teams
used to
through
be
the
the
years.
Baltimore Orioles. The Yankees did.
Yeah, I think Baltimore is a baseball town at the end
course
of
it
the
is.
day.
I
Yeah.
agree with you.
And I think when they play a little better, I think they will be fine at
Right.
Camden Yards. I really do believe that. I think the more concerning one, Tampa has been so competitive with very limited resources, and they just don't get a lot of fan support.
Yeah, I mean, they've been
Florida's a tough state. I mean, it's been difficult for all professionals.
because of the spring training, because of the weather.
Yeah, I think it's, transplants, a lot of other things to do. I think in Tampa, the location of the stadium is another issue.
Yeah, I mean, the Yankees go there. When the Yankees and Red Sox play, it's wonderful. It's like 2/3 Yankees, 1/3 Red Sox. But all of a sudden now in Tampa, it's like more Yankee fans, and I'm sure there are more Red Sox fans.
Well, their spring training home
Yeah.
being there, George's home being
Yeah,
there, it made,
yeah.
obviously a lot of Yankee fans. So.
Well, Commissioner, you have been extraordinarily generous with your time. I know there's a
appreciate
very
it.
busy time for you, and thank you so much. And
Well,
and
I enjoyed
I
it.
can't tell you how much we admire what a good
We
job
could
you did.
talk
Well, thank you.
all
It was
day.
a nice chat.